this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Scams don't always look like scams anymore. AI can make a fake ticket offer look legit or a sportsbook text sound official. And once an identity thief gets your personal information, they can start using your name like it belongs to them. And then what? LifeLock helps detect potential identity threats and suspicious activity. And if identity theft happens, LifeLock's restoration specialist can help restore your identity, guaranteed, because only LifeLock truly protects your name and identity. Get LifeLock at LifeLock.com and use promo code FOOTBALL for up to 30% off your first year. That's LifeLock.com, code FOOTBALL. Lowe's knows Sundays are for football. So tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Ego, DeWalt, Filtrete products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
Chris Harris is the owner of Harris Football, who hosts the popular Harris Football podcast. Prior to Harris Football, he spent over 8 years at ESPN. He's a film-based analyst, a novelist. He's got a new book called Pound Foolish out on September 1st. These are his late-round perspectives. This episode is sponsored by DraftKings. We've partnered up with DraftKings again this year for Best Ball, and we've got a can't-miss offer on their biggest Best Ball contest ever. $20 million in total prizes. It's draft one, get one. Draft your team once, no weekly lineup management, and your top scorers start automatically each week, all season long. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and sign up with promo code LATEROUND. Enter a lineup in the $20 million Best Ball contest for $25 and get a bonus ticket for a second entry. 2 shots at the title. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. How's it going with this new book?
You're going to have to ask me in like 2 weeks because it's not out yet, but people are pre-ordering. And, yeah. I would, it's like I would love to say, oh, the response has been amazing, but nobody has it. You have it, but, it's a busy time of year.
Tell me about the book, what it's about, what inspired you to write it. I mean, you've done other novels and such in the past, other books. Like, what was it that made you go? Is this your first football focused one too?
Second.
Yeah.
My first novel is called Slotback Rhapsody. It was like 2011. And actually so that's about an undersized running back who tries to make it in the NFL. And
was it a precursor to Christian McCaffrey? Is that what the?
No, it was Danny Woodhead in his Patriots days.
Right there you go. Okay.
It was more like that was who I had in mind. It takes place in Detroit, but Danny Woodhead was who I had in mind. And so then you're right. I wrote a bunch of other books and came back to football as a subject matter for this one. And it's a sequel. The same character from the first one is one of the main characters in this one.
Gotcha.
This one's a lot more ambitious and has a lot of other characters in it and is about the season in a life. And the team happens to have somebody who might be a serial killer who's murdering women on the team.
Oh.
And so the character from Slotback no longer plays. He's retired. And they bring him in to like investigate the things that they cannot be seen investigating themselves internally. Like, see if you can figure this out. They like ask him.
Yeah.
So he infiltrates the team, and then we meet many of the team members, and there's a lot of fun game action and stuff. And what inspired me to write it, I guess, was my own feelings of moral compromise about being a barnacle on the side of professional football.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I feel that way all the time. I mean, it's there's definitely like a grossness to what we do, for a living that I think that like it's only human to feel that way. And I think it's important though to like talk about that on shows sometimes and remind people that we feel that way for sure. Like it's very easy for what we're doing to essentially just minimize what these athletes are going through and doing on a football field for our entertainment, and treating them as like they're not people sometimes in the way that we analyze fantasy football.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I feel that way all the time.
Plus, just there's that aspect of it, the sacrifice, the churn of human flesh, human flesh. There's that side of it. And there's the compromises that they have to go through to put themselves through it. The bad behavior that can sometimes then result in, that we then wind up either excusing or waving away. And certainly the league waves away. And then to me, my way of thinking, worst of all, is kind of the too big to fail nature of the billionaires and the business and Roger Goodell and the whole bread and circus and nonsense, as though they're smart, as though they've done anything other than literally just accidentally find the goose that lays the golden eggs or be the lucky sperm club of such a person. And then that somehow, because they're billionaires and own these teams, grants them some sort of claim to intellect or savvy or anything. And then they get to hold communities hostage. The Bears are going through this right now where give us public money that we don't need, but we can ask for it. We can hold a gun to your head. So we're just going to do it. It's all pretty nauseating in some ways. And people who get turned off of the NFL, I have plenty of friends. I have a really close friend who's been in my fantasy leagues for more than a decade. This year, he quit. And he loved the camaraderie of fantasy. We all do. It's my favorite part of it. Loved it.
Right.
He just didn't want to watch football anymore.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. There's definitely that angle to it. And so, I mean, I think it's important to like have that out there that, we're self-aware enough to understand that this can be gross sometimes as we get, into this show and we're going to be talking about, oh, this guy's bad at this thing. And like, it's like that, and that's too,
But JJ, that's almost the point though. Like, I still love it.
Right.
I'm not telling you I don't love it. I'm not telling you that you watching and listening shouldn't love it. Please continue to love it. It helps me and JJ a lot if you continue to love it. So all I'm trying to say is it's complicated, and people going la 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 la. I don't think that's really living in the real world. And anyway, why did I write the book? Is to try to sort of tap into some of those feelings. So the book is definitely not all like bludgeoning people saying bad NFL, but it's just sort of trying to say it's very complicated, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on that is very weird and not awesome. But then some stuff that's totally awesome and incredible. And how many common spaces do we have left in America?
I know. That's the thing too. Like there's so much good. So much good that comes out of this game too that can't be dismissed. I mean, even the players themselves get like, their own stories where they're able to find something that they're able to make the amount of money they're making doing it, and they're obviously becoming something that they could only dream of becoming, and they're like that's what I love about the NFL draft most is just the story and like seeing people achieving their goals in real time. Like to me that's amazing, right? And then I'm sitting there and I'm writing up the prospect profiles being like, oh yeah, this guy's breakout score was right. But that's the dichotomy, like that's the the back and forth that I think any healthy fantasy analyst is probably, going through and thinking about. But again, like it's good to at least voice that, and you get to put it out there and metaphorically and such in a book the way that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. I hope people, if you're interested in reading fiction, I hope you give it a shot. If you have ever listened to anything I do, I did the audiobook also. There's an ebook. You can pre-order it all. Go to Harris Football. There are links. I'm doing a tour. I mean, this is the first reading tour I've ever done.
That sounds like fun though. Should be a good time, right?
Yes, because mostly it's just an excuse to do meetups, and I've done a lot. I've done a ton of meetups with fans of my show, and they're so fun. People are so nice. My God, it's just what a hardship to walk into a room where everybody likes what you do. So woe is me. It's so hard. But these are towns I've never done meetups in. So Sunday is Seattle. It's actually Tacoma, but Seattle area. Monday is Portland. Tuesday is Vegas. Wednesday is Phoenix.
Wow.
So 4 cities, 4 days, a lot of travel. And I'm going to make a podcast in the morning from the hotel at each site.
Are you? So. Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah. You did the almanac this year. I know you started, was it last year you started doing it again? Like you took a little bit of a break with it. And then, but like, I mean, that's a lot of writing in general. Like you clearly, I mean, you're a very great writer.
Thank you.
But like that obviously is just a part of you. But I know for me, like I do the draft guide, right? And it's, a lot of words and a lot of like, my brain's just completely fried. So I imagine that you're completely fried right now after doing both the almanac and, the book stuff.
I'm okay. I mean, this book's been done for a while because it takes a long time to put it together. Yeah. Like I didn't have a cover in April, but like the book was done in April.
Right.
I've been writing another book. But yeah, I mean, the almanac is a big summit to climb. I mean, you do a guide, so like it's pretty all consuming. Essentially, I'm writing a profile for 230, 240 players. There's no way to do it unless like every day I just make myself write 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like I'll go do something else. Usually go to the coffee shop and work on writing fiction, and then I'll go to the gym, and then the afternoon it's like, well, I got to write 5 profiles. And the good thing about that is like I'm loopy at that point. And so I'm mostly just trying to make a joke. Each, like a lot of those, but you get a copy every year. Like,
I've read it. Yeah.
Like, I hope there's good football stuff in there, but I'm also just trying to make people laugh. So hopefully.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some of these topics.
Sure.
I always like talking to you about fantasy and about football in general because, we approach things from a different angle. But I've said this before, even when you were on Perspectives last time, it's like people will put you in a box of like what kind of analyst you are without like I did a show with you like a week and a half ago where we talked about film only, like it was just, we're just talking about guys that we like watching and, going through that. And it's not, and I mean, I've seen in the almanac, like you're doing little research stuff, within there that's data driven, of course, right?
Yep.
But I do appreciate how you are very, very willing to just say, this is what I believe. And I'm not saying you're a moron if you don't believe it, but I'm telling you that I believe this thing. Right. And so I want to start this off by asking you, what's something that you think about evaluating fantasy football players that you think the rest of the fantasy industry, whether analysts or just players, managers, just kind of get fundamentally wrong?
The one thing I'm right and everybody else is wrong. That's a long list, JJ. No, I mean, it feels like it changed a little bit this year, only because last year running backs had their moment and wide receivers got hurt. But it does feel like this year things tilted a little more towards understanding where there's real scarcity and yet still not enough. And to my way of thinking, it's just a numbers game. I don't feel like people fully understand. Anybody who like I'm in the middle of doing a Reddit AMA right now. I'm taking a little break to do this show, which is, very thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Of course.
And, people are like, okay, so I have the 2 pick and I'm going to go chase. And then I'm going to go and I'm thinking to myself, don't do that. Who's telling you to do that? You don't have to do that. Take a running back. What are you doing? Just from a pure like replacement value over replacement level, there's just no substitute for running back. And we've lived through the era of 0 RB. It feels like that's maybe going away a little bit, but now it's been replaced by hero RB, which is that even a thing? Hero RB? Isn't that what people who like RBs always said? Make sure you get one. Like, I don't know. But anyway,
right.
Yeah, I guess the place where I've always kind of put my stake has been, I'm agnostic. I don't care. I just want to find the places where there's the best value over the guys I can get as replacements. And for as long as I've been doing it, it's been running backs. And it feels like, depending on what happened last year, the market keeps vacillating back and forth. And I just don't vacillate.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point is like all the research that I've done for the draft guide each year, because the draft guide's like very much game theory, focused and such before I get into like player takes and, guys I'm targeting, all that kind of stuff. The one thing that's been consistent through every single draft guide is that if you have an elite running back, you have the best advantage, the greatest advantage in fantasy football, period, right? Like if you have that player. And you got to spend money to make money. Like you gotta pay up to get these guys generally, if you're going to, acquire one of those players. And if you don't, it's just gonna be very, very difficult to have the game breaking, the most important players, in fantasy. I do think that the current NFL meta, I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but like the current NFL meta and the way that, we're seeing a little bit more heavy personnel. And that's obviously led to, run heavier offenses than what we've at least seen over the last like 5-10 years. I mean, last year we had the lowest pass rate since at least like 2011. So it was a lot less pass heavy than other seasons. And I think that, the response to that from some people is like, oh, I have to draft running backs really, really early now, which is true. I think that you should be drafting running backs early. But to the counter to that would be, I mean, you do rankings every week. I mean, last year when I would rank wide receivers, I'm like, okay, there's 8 guys that are good that I know can be, difference making type players. And then once I get to that like next tier, it's just the same dude until like wide receiver 30, right? Like it's the 50. Same cluster. So yeah. And so that's the hardest part for me this season is balancing, because like there are those like game changing wide receivers that in this meta, right, where you have more 12, 13 personnel and there's fewer, there's fewer wide receivers on the field, but then those wide receivers also get hyper targeted a little bit more because the alternative is, okay, we're going to throw to this, AJ Barner or whoever, some random tight end that is fine, but very replacement level. And then you kind of get like, I think, Jackson Smith and Jigba is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like he's a phenomenal wide receiver, but I do think schematically it helped that they ran the offense the way they did because it force fed some of those looks his way. And so, I'm curious how you feel about like those elite wide receivers that we can pinpoint. But, on the flip side, we could sit here and say, we thought that about Justin Jefferson last year and look how that ended up, so I get that argument too. But where are you at with that in general?
The biggest piece of advice, if I can always reduce it to a bumper sticker, is draft players, not positions. Mm-hmm. And, again, this Reddit is on my mind and people are like, okay, so what do you think about two running backs in the first 3 rounds? And I go, God, it depends on the running backs. I can't, right. And so somebody else said, hey, I know you say always take a running back in the first round. I'm like, no, I don't. I have Jamar Chase in a standard league with no PPR as my number 6 player, which means if my first 5 running backs are gone, am I taking Jamar Chase number 6? You're damn right I am, because he is an unbelievable player. And one of the, like you said, whether you want to call it 9 or maybe 4 this year, I don't know how many there are. Yeah. 100%. Like, fine. Yes, I'm not, receiver isn't quite the scarce commodity that running back is, but it's the second most scarce. And if I can get the best guy, absolutely, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to deal with it. Right. What you're saying is very well said. The thing about 13 personnel and 12 personnel, and let's face it, 3 wide is still the base formation in the NFL.
It is. Yeah, you'll still see a lot of it.
So we still see an unbelievable churn of receivers in any given game, like 6 or 7. You and I did not grow up in a world where 7 receivers on a given team were running routes in a game.
Right.
We would have, our heads would have exploded. How are we supposed to play fantasy with this nonsense where you're telling me, some random schmo is fifth, Efton Chisholm has a chance to catch 3 passes in a week and ruin my day. The reason that wide receiver is so flat beyond what we hope are the elite guys, I might argue 3 or 4 elite guys, is because of that churn and because 3 wide is still the base formation. But yeah, when you have 3 wide and then you're not throwing out a 3 wide more, which is definitely true, trying to stretch a defense out and run, that creates even more flatness because, Nico Collins. I love Nico Collins. I think he's a terrific player. He's in my top 12. I view as a rock solid wide receiver 1. Drake London. Rock solid wide receiver 1 in my ranks, number 7 or something in my ranks. Love him. I'm going to draft these guys and know that because of the way these teams call plays and the way defenses are creating hard shells and umbrellas, we're back to Legion of Boom 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I'm going to get weeks out of Drake London and Nico Collins where they do 2 for 17.
Yeah.
I just am.
Yeah.
And that's something that just has to be built in because there's very few receivers for whom that is not the case because it is such a rotational 3 wide league with, absolutely, you're right, I 100% agree that the trends also are, you're also going to get some more plays where all the receivers sit and the guys who are running routes are not going to get the ball, and they're simply going to run more. It just creates this incredible flatness at wide receiver that makes me think, I'd say it all the time, like, I can't swear to you that like George Pickens is going to have a lot more fantasy points than Chris Godwin. I mean, I really can't. Chris Godwin's awesome. He's a really good player. Right. He could wind up wide receiver 8, and Pickens could wind up receiver 18, and neither one gets hurt, because the difference between 8 and 18 is like 50 yards and 2 touchdowns, because it's so freaking flat. So I certainly, in draft strategies, am very open to taking those elite wide receivers if the running backs I don't want to take are gone. But I feel best firing shots at Chris Godwin and his like in the 6th, 7th, 8th, as opposed to going, well, maybe Chris Rodriguez takes over that job. You know, I feel like I got a much better shot at hitting with the wide receivers.
Yeah, I always kind of like, again, going back to like some of the draft guide stuff, I always say that like, if the normal fantasy manager / the way that ADP generally falls is a 0 to 100, where like, you know, 1 year it's 0 and the next year everything kind of flips and people just kind of overcorrect and overreact to what happened that previous season, which we know happens all the time. Yeah. I try to just stay in that like 30 to 70 range, you know, in the way that like I'm trying to. Strategy in fantasy football has become, and I come from literally like, that's how I started doing all of this, was like doing a lot of the strategy game theory work and stuff. But it's almost gotten to the point where people are way too strict with it and going into their drafts and they say, I'm going to go 0 RB. I'm going to go. The reason you should understand strategy is to know how to react when things are going down in your draft, right? It's no different than like strategy in war or something, right? Like where like, oh, we're expecting this, but we don't know if this is going to, but I'm smart enough to know, because I've been researching this and I've been thinking about this so much, that when this thing happens, I can react to this. And then therefore I can put together a really solid, you know, it's similar to like just understanding where tier breaks are, or where like there's drop-offs that occur and who's available and who's not available. And so like, it's almost, it's weird, because I feel this is not the position I would have taken 10 years ago, because 10 years ago it was very much a people walking into drafts and just being like, I'm just going to pick whoever's at the top of my board and not really think about roster construction and like what I can get later. And now it's just this like really, really harsh way of attacking drafts, when it just feels a little wrong. Like you can win with many, many different draft strategies. And I would argue that a lot of different like there are better draft strategies than others, obviously, but you do have to be reactive. Like if you're sitting in, you know, round 2 and only running backs have been drafted and Jamar Chase is sitting there, but you're like, you know,
I'm supposed to take a running back.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, but I went into this draft thing, I was going to go RB. I've got to go RB. So I'm going to pass on Jamar Chase here instead of drafting, I don't know, like Javonte Williams or something like that. Like, I don't know. I just think there's been like this like overthinking of the strategy side at this point, instead of really focusing on like why we're talking about strategy in the first place.
100%. I mean, not to keep flattering ourselves with comparisons, but it's like chess, you know, people memorize openings and they'll memorize pretty far into openings, and they'll, you know, this is what I do. This is what I do. And then the moment you don't do the book move, they go, oh crap. You were supposed to move the knight, and now that you didn't move the knight, I don't know what the line is, you know, and then they don't have a deep understanding of the actual position. They just knew what they memorized in the opening.
Some would say that's the equivalent of a Mike Tomlin defense, right? Where it's the same thing every week, and it works against some teams, but then some teams know how to beat it. And he's just like, oh, I don't know how to adjust.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Right. I do want to ask you too, because obviously you come from a film perspective with a lot of your work, and I appreciate that kind of stuff when I'm a listener, because it's just the stuff that I don't need to listen to other data people necessarily, because I feel comfortable with like the conclusions I'm coming to and like what I'm looking at and whatnot. But I always love hearing, you know, other perspectives with film and such. But I am curious, to put you on the spot a little bit. What's something that the analytics side of fantasy football has sort of convinced you of over the years that you may not have uncovered, you know, or thought otherwise as you're doing the work that you're doing?
Oh, I mean, I love the conversations. You know, I just don't want them to be like the sole drivers behind things. But like, I don't think I paid attention to like air yards at the target as much. That's a nice, simple little, I mean, that's even just in the past few years, doesn't it feel like that one has become like so mainstream?
Oh, it's like just part of like the average player understands A dot.
Yeah. And like A dot for receivers being very important. You know, I'd say I'll look at expected numbers.
Yeah.
And honestly, I will like use them if they make my point, and if they don't, I'll just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see it. But you know, I think I'm glad it's there. I'm interested to see what it says. I don't really know that like win shares added per play, that stuff I don't really buy too much. But yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, in those sections of the Almanac where I do the little research projects, I'm intending that to be somewhat of a nod. It's not always an analytic question, but sometimes it is. And have it be like, well, how often has 34-year-old wide receiver, you know, acted like a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2? I mean, I think that's kind of analytics, you know, to some degree. Yeah. And that stuff gives context that I find to be incredibly helpful.
That's the stuff that I love to lean on as like a guide, is the trends type stuff, right? Yeah. And not to say that like, I do actually think that there's a lot of over analysis. I mean, shocker. I mean, you'll definitely agree with this. There's a lot of, yeah. There's a lot of over analysis with numbers that have not been tested in terms of them being predictive whatsoever, right? Like, you go on Twitter and it's interesting to maybe look at, but it's really, really easy to then have people kind of like latch on to whatever this analyst is saying or what have you. And I mean, people could then come to me and be like, well, this person said this on Twitter and this is the metric that they were citing and whatever. And I'm like, that's cool. I want to know how valid that metric is to begin with, you know, like how important that kind of metric is before I'm just blindly following. Now, some metrics are obviously going to be like somewhat intuitive, and they're obviously, if you're looking at like usage on third down and long or something like that for a running back, and seeing like if they're, you know, rotating running backs and getting, you know, data that way to just understand deployment in the way that teams are kind of using their players, that's one thing. I'm saying more so of like these proprietary metrics that are out there that kind of look like they make sense on paper, but they are not necessarily predictive whatsoever. And so that's kind of like the angle that Late Round's always gone with. And I hired Brandon Gadula on in January to sort of like dig into that stuff. Like our newsletter is just basically Brandon digging into, does catchable targets rate matter? You know, it's a metric that people throw out there all the time, but how predictive and how meaningful is it? Yeah. And, you know, a lot of these metrics are like, they matter at the extremes, but they don't really matter for the bulk of the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And there's such a difference between these you would consider them to be almost like high fructose, highly processed stats that, like you said, sometimes are proprietary, or sometimes I just don't, they don't really make any intuitive sense about how they're coming up. Oh, trust us. It's a pretty complicated formula, but it works. We came up with it. Yeah. As opposed to things like you said, like observable things that are simply converted to math. Those are really very, very useful as background noise that I'm constantly looking at. You know, we're constantly like, well, how many routes did he run on third down? Like, yeah, you know, that's hugely important to say that there's no data in what I do, or I mean, to say that there's no film in what you do. I know from personal experience, you watch every damn game. So like the idea that there's I think we do a lot of the same things, and, you know, absolutely it would be impossible for me to do my job without this kind of observable ordering of what happened into some consumable numbers that I can then make understand with what I'm observing. That's such a massive important part of what I do. Right.
It's impossible to know after watching a game exactly how many routes a player ran.
Of course. Just, you know, and what down and like, you know, did they run the route beyond 10 yards? Like, that's all amazing stuff to know. Really important.
Right. Yeah. Is there a player trait that you think fantasy analysts tend to overrate? Like, can be any position, just like a trait that you think that, you know, I mean, I guess I already phrased it, that fantasy analysts end up overrating.
I mean, it's the combine 40 time, and it's probably more for running backs than anything else. It's wild. It's out of control. It's as if Raheem Mostert never happened. They just forgot. And my poster child for that right now is Omarion Hampton, where I'm not saying he's bad. I don't really know. I guess you really can't come out of last year having if you have like a super cemented opinion that you're positive what Omarion Hampton is after a year where he got hurt, and obviously before that the tackles got hurt, and so the Chargers were not what they wanted to be. I think probably you're being stubborn, but his going like early second round, almost like at the turn, feels like wish casting based on combine numbers, because I watch him play, and if you're going to tell me at some point that we're going to explain away this Hall of Fame career, this first year as a broken byproduct of bad things that happened, I guess that could wind up being true, but there's some bad tape from his rookie year where, great, you're fast. I never see you get there. I never see you break around the edge. I never see you make someone miss. I never see you cut into the clear and like have good vision. So anyway, I'm going to just use Hampton as, again, I don't know if he sucks. I'm not taking him where he's going. I'll make him the poster child for my overrated stat quality, whatever, which is like straight ahead speed for a running back.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not the player that you want to attack aggressively if you're trying to be risk averse in the second round. I mean, I can't get behind, like, there's very proven talent in that area of like, we both like Chase Brown a lot as a player in a great situation as well. Saquon is in there. I think now right now today I have, both Achane and Henry above Omarion Hampton.
Me too.
Because of the, just the stability piece of it. I understand the upside case though for Hampton, at least that offense could end up just being like a juggernaut this year, realistically, if things end up clicking. I didn't think that what I saw with him last year was phenomenal by any means. But I do wonder how much he could potentially crush with just gaping lanes, right? Like that, like, cause if vision is part of the issue. Also, he does take a little bit longer than what I remembered watching him in college, and his analytical profile actually, like, he looked pretty good in the Zap model too. But regardless, like, it took him longer than I would have liked for him to get to that top speed last year, I would say, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, it seems like you're drafting laundry at that point. It seems like if you're going to take the plunge on Hampton, I understand what could go right, but it's almost like you're drafting the situation and not the player. And I'm just, I think you
have to. Yeah. I think that's what it really comes down. Like, let me ask you this. Would you be shocked if he led the NFL in rushing touchdowns this year?
The answer is no. Shocked. Yeah. Who one man's shocked is another man's, jolted, slightly jolted, but no, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Henry did, and I wouldn't be shocked if Achane did, and I wouldn't be shocked if Barkley did, and I wouldn't be shocked if Chase Brown did, and I wouldn't be shocked. Like, that's kind of the point. It's predicting sports. We don't really know what's going to happen. I've just seen all those other guys be good in the NFL, and Omarion Hampton is the one guy, you said it, that stands out as never having done it, and I'm scared when we draft situations. When we draft situations, Aston Genty goes 5. I'm scared of, well, there's so much theoretical upside, and it almost doesn't, it's like Tevin Coleman. Great 40 time, big guy. Come on. It's like, yeah, he kept running into the side of the barn. He couldn't see anything. So anyway, but anyway, I got us onto a specific player. I'm interested in your response to my thought of the 40 time being the thing I'm most annoyed by.
Every player in the league has a scouting report, strengths, weaknesses, history, tendencies, everything an opponent wants to know. But what if somebody built a scouting report on you? Data brokers collect your personal stats, your name, address, phone number, family details, and other private information. Then they package it up and legally sell it to anyone willing to pay, sometimes just for pennies. And then what? The person buying your information may not be looking to draft you. They may be looking to scam you, steal your identity, and start using your name like it belongs to them. That's where LifeLock comes in. LifeLock's automatic data broker removal tool helps you find exposed personal information and remove it from those data brokers. If you fall victim to identity theft, LifeLock's restoration specialists will block and tackle for you, which means they'll handle your case from start to finish and restore your identity guaranteed. Because only LifeLock truly protects your name and your identity. So go get LifeLock at LifeLock.com and use promo code FOOTBALL for up to 30% off your first year. That's LifeLock.com, code FOOTBALL. Again, LifeLock.com, code FOOTBALL. Lowe's knows Sundays are for football. So tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Ego, DeWalt, Filtrete products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
When I talk to people about my prospect model, the initial reaction to people who like maybe haven't like jumped into that arena ever or like seen anything that's college prospecting based, that's numbers driven, is that they assume that it's all combine based. And I can't even explain to you how little the NFL the thing that matters in the prospect model actually is just the height and weight measurements that I get from the combine, because bigger running backs do tend to outpace their draft capital a little bit better from a fantasy perspective and such, right? And so like I care about size. Now, the speed stuff, it's more so that you would obviously like if you had the exact same analytical profile, or like you're watching a player. I mean, obviously I'm coming at it from a ZAP model perspective. If I had the exact same analytical profile from like an age adjusted production standpoint, and one player had a really good speed score, weight adjusted 40 time, and one player had a really bad one, yeah, I'll sure, lean the player that had the really good one, right? And it's more so at the extremes and stuff. But again, it's one of those things where like you have to have a backbone of good NFL production. And this is also one of those things where like I built the model and I've really enhanced it and it's gotten better every year. And I really turned the corner in like the 2020, 2021 timeframe or so with like modeling. And I mean, it was around the time that I started this company. So I wanted to do the prospect guide. So I really leaned into all of it. And I then look back, because I'm obviously testing off of data. Yeah. And I look back at previous years and guys that were drafted in 2016 or whatever. And I'm like, I see why people fell in love with this player and I see why he busted. And a perfect example of this with the speed score stuff and the 40 time stuff is like a Christian Michael, right? Where he had unbelievable athletic measurables and he gets pretty good draft capital. His production profile was absolutely horrendous. Like it was terrible. And so when you get that pairing, that's when you know the market is likely to inflate that player. And that's when you say, okay, but the thing that matters most, the production stuff, the predictive production stuff that I know has been predictive, like if that's not there, then I don't really care about what this 40 time says. Like maybe, every once in a while you're going to get like the random one-off hit of like bad production profile or like mediocre production profile and, really high end speed, because every once in a while athleticism does translate better than what we imagine and what we think. But I do think a general guideline of like people overrate 40, I mean, especially wide receiver. There's actually, I don't know if you know this, but there's an inverse correlation.
Oh no.
For wide receiver 40 time and how well they perform in the NFL and draft capital. So like if a wide receiver gets drafted in the top 100, day one or day two in the NFL draft who ran a fast 40, you generally want to fade that player as opposed to leaning into it, because you're almost double counting, because the NFL already, really enhanced that player's profile by drafting him so early by, the Darius Hayward-Bay thing, or, and you see it all the time, unfortunately, where these guys just get boosted and boosted and boosted by these NFL teams, but their production profile is what matters. I care so much more. Now, every once in a while you get screwed. Like I like David Bell when he came out, just absolutely nothing, but he had a great production profile. But yeah, I think it's a good rule of thumb, honestly, where I would generally agree with you.
Can I ask you just about the college production profile? I did a little research thing in the Almanac for Jadarian Price, which was the fewest college touches of any running back selected in the first round of the NFL draft since 2000. And the fewest collegiate touches was Jadarian Price. I mean, for obvious reasons. He was playing behind. Very, very good player. And the guy with the second fewest who went in the first round was Josh Jacobs, who clearly has had a really, really good career. But otherwise, the list of names is mostly terrifying. Michael Bennett, Felix Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Rashard Mendenhall. I guess Rashard Mendenhall had an RB8 season, but if a guy has little workloads like that, in your model, does that get scary for you?
Yeah, but I don't approach it the way that like people think that but like people would assume that you would then say, oh, I'm just not drafting this player. I just view it as volatility, right? I just view it as like, we don't know.
Got it.
But the thing with Jadarian Price, that's a little bit different. Like if he didn't have, so I have a teammate score in there that he gets boosted because, and it depends on where Jeremiah Love gets drafted. So he gets drafted 3rd overall. And then all of a sudden that teammate score really, really boosts Jadarian Price. And he ended up being like more of a fairly neutral player within the model, despite the fact that he had probably the worst production profile of anyone in that model that got drafted that high, right? And so I view it as like, I'm not fading. I'm not going to probably be as aggressive as some people because I don't necessarily want to take on that kind of volatility, in the first 6 rounds of my first 6 picks of my rookie draft. But I don't view it as like Jadarian Price is definitely going to bust because obviously there are extenuating circumstances as to why the production wasn't there. But if he didn't have Jeremiah Love and he had that production profile, I'd be sitting here being like, this is a scary profile, guys. I don't think that we should be leaning into it. And, more often than not, that works. But then sometimes, I mean, this wide receiver class in particular this year was genuinely like not very good analytically, just very, as the kids say, mid, right? And so Dazon Stribling did not have a good production profile. Caleb Douglas did not have a good age-adjusted production profile. But it's also a choose your own adventure kind of thing because all of these guys didn't. To me, it was like this big 4 wide receivers with Tyson, Tate, Lemon, and Concepcion. It's always nice when draft capital kind of aligns with that because it means that like the NFL teams are thinking similarly and such. Mm-hmm. And then it was just kind of like, all right, I'm not going to be shocked because someone's going to emerge. I'm not going to be shocked if it's someone with a crappier profile just because there's so many of them this year. So, I mean, it's more so a volatility thing for me than anything else. And that's kind of how I view Price. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but obviously like you've drafted now and we're in the midst of draft season. As you look at the way that your drafts have kind of gone, as well as just ADP, I know that you're one. I mean, God bless you. I can't do this, but you wait
until
look at ADP
until Monday of this week. I don't look at ADP.
That's honestly incredibly impressive because I have been looking at ADP since I think February. So I appreciate the people who can hold back like that. But what's been sort of the most common team construction that you find yourself, leaning towards? Sounds like you're going RB heavy just because of what the board is giving you and such. But like, have you been in different parts of the board where you're like, oh, late round 1, I like double tapping running back. Maybe in the first part of round 1, I'm getting a running back, but then maybe like, what does that look like for you?
The number of drafts I've done is, I would say more often than not running back in the first round, but definitely gotten Chase a couple of times, gotten JSN a couple of times in the first round and built a team that I liked. Really depends on what else went in front of me. Around that 2-3 turn, I have tended to find just for whatever reason, the drafts I'm in, there sets in mid round 2, the running back panic sets in. And I don't know if you'll have to correct me if you feel this way too. Like I get to that turn, if you're picking, the Gibbs Bijan area,
if you're lucky enough.
Right. If you're lucky enough, you're not going to find a lot of great running backs at that 2-3 turn. And so sometimes there are, and it really just depends. Again, I'm drafting players, not positions. So this is all theoretical until we get in a draft and you see what actual players are there. But a lot of times it winds up being 2 receivers at that point.
Yeah.
Again, like a lot of Devontae Smith. A lot
of, I have a ton of them too.
Chris Olave, a lot of Zay Flowers. I love them in that little area. And then maybe 2 of them, but also sometimes there's another running back there and I go, sure, I can make that work. But you said it before, like when it's Javonte, I have done like Bijan, Devontae Smith, Javonte Williams. Mm-hmm. And then I just find all I'm doing is feeling like I'm playing catch up at receiver, and it's okay. I'm firing. Terry McLaurin, come on down. I'll get some Rome Odunze. I'll get some Christian Watson as we go further and further down. And I feel okay about that because again, I just think there are 50 guys who could finish in the top 10. It's and the top 10 is almost meaningless because there'll be an average of like 2 fantasy points per game between like the wide receiver 12 and the wide receiver 50.
And also like the back half of, if you're in that one of those slots, from like 109 onwards, it's very, very easy to just get your 2 running backs and feel great about them. And then when you're in round 3 and 4, there is a tier. I wonder if you feel this way. There's just this tier of incredible upside wide receivers that you can go for, that you feel just like very comfortable with. And data shows that the front half of drafts, or, especially the 101, 102, generally you're going to have better results and such. But I don't really mind the tail end of round 1 this year, because I do think, to your point, like if you're in the front half, as you get to the end of round 2, you're definitely forcing it at running back. Like you're feeling that too, as you're making that selection. But at least in the back half, you're like, oh, I can get, James Cook and maybe a Kenneth Walker comes around the second, or something like, like someone that you can at least envision being a pretty strong fantasy asset this year, right? And then in round 3, you're sitting there, you're like, maybe we do get a falling Zay Flowers or a falling Devontae Smith. But even if we don't, oh, here's Jalen Waddle on Denver or something. Like there's just a lot of upside there. So it's interesting this year, and the way that, the drafts are unfolding and such. But I think it's fairer, because Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs are just such smashes, in the top 2 picks in general, that there should be a somewhat of a disadvantage, in the later rounds for that spot.
Yeah, we think we know everything, and then we get to week 1 and our mind palaces just shatter, and it turns out Brian
Robinson's running into the end zone, and,
right,
and Bijan's on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, count on 0 hands how many times Bijan Robinson has more than 70% of his team's carries in a season. It hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but that doesn't matter, because he's great. Like, what we want is great players. They all have some degree of timeshare. Right. But another conversation. My point is that Saquon wasn't the 101 when he ran for 2,000 yards. There's just things that happen. We just think we know, and then it turns out we don't really, really know, which is why I think if you're erring on the side of drafting players that if everything goes right, they're good enough that they can really go boom. And there aren't that many running backs where I can say that's the case, but there's a lot of receivers.
Yeah, it's fair.
If you grant the Jags a top 3 offense, I can name 3 receivers who might be startable for fantasy. If you grant the Jags a top 3 offense, maybe Bashul Tutin is, but I don't think Bashul Tutin is great. So like maybe he'd be startable, but I'm not sure he'd be like a smash league winner. The wide receiver talent in the league right now is unfreaking believable.
That's the other thing. Yeah. I didn't mean like that. I don't mean to interrupt, but like that was one of the things that we could have even talked about at the top of like why the spread is the way that it is because we've just gotten really good wide receiver classes the last 10 years. We've just gotten really good wideouts out there.
That's the position that the crazy athletes play. I don't know if I said this to you when you were on my show last week or 2 weeks ago, but it's like if you could send any of these receiving core back to like 1970 NFL, it would be like going back to the Pilgrim time and giving them one sour Skittle, and like their heads would explode. Like these guys are freaks. And like the 4th receiver on every team is utter unbelievable, ridiculous size, speed freak. The amount of talent at receiver is both daunting for fantasy, but also just like overwhelmingly admirable. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good point to make.
Every player in the league has a scouting report, strengths, weaknesses, history, tendencies, everything an opponent wants to know. But what if somebody built a scouting report on you? Data brokers collect your personal stats, your name, address, phone number, family details, and other private information. Then they package it up and legally sell it to anyone willing to pay, sometimes just for pennies. And then what? The person buying your information may not be looking to draft you. They may be looking to scam you, steal your identity, and start using your name like it belongs to them. That's where LifeLock comes in. LifeLock's automatic data broker removal tool helps you find exposed personal information and remove it from those data brokers. If you fall victim to identity theft, LifeLock's restoration specialist will block and tackle for you, which means they'll handle your case from start to finish and restore your identity guaranteed. Because only LifeLock truly protects your name and your identity. So go get LifeLock at LifeLock.com and use promo code FOOTBALL for up to 30% off your first year. That's LifeLock.com, code football. Again, LifeLock.com, code football. Lowe's knows Sundays are for football. So tackle your home improvement projects by Saturday and earn your Sunday with great deals on LG and Bosch appliances, select Ego, DeWalt, Filtrete products, and more. Then once your to-do list is done, get ready to kick back, relax, and enjoy the game. Shop in-store or online now and earn your Sunday with help from Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
All right, I have to ask you this because I know the answer to it, and I just want to hear you get angry and yell about it.
All right.
Tell me how much you hate preseason football and why you hate preseason football.
Well, I call it exhibition football. Are you old enough to remember when the league called it exhibition season?
Call it that? Yeah.
Do you remember that when you were a kid?
Oh, I remember. Yeah. Was it?
Season.
Did Goodell change it?
Yeah.
Was he the? Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I just don't watch it. I think it's useless. I pay way more attention to the beat reports of the joint practices. I think that's way more important for as long as whoever's healthy. Which position groups, who's out with whom, who gets matched up on the top guys, who stands out, all that stuff. It's certainly controlled play by play. A lot of it's not even tackling to the ground, but it's the actual plays that they're going to run, and it is the actual personnel who is going to run them. And the problem is that all the exhibition games, not only is that not the case for the exhibition games, but the extent to which it's not the case varies wildly from team to team. So you just don't know what you're looking at. And it's so easy to get bamboozled. Oh, but they were playing the first defense. Yeah, they had like vanilla quarters coverage that they wouldn't budge out of no matter what. It doesn't ever translate. So I just don't watch it.
Yeah, it's funny. I probably put stock into it like before I truly I think that everyone just gets better at whatever they're doing as they're doing it. And I find myself like, I don't care at all about preseason football anymore either. And there's a couple things that happened in my life to like really get me there. Like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, I would put a decent amount of stock into it. And then as the years went on, I gradually cared less and less. And then the thing that made me literally never care again was the year 2 Kenny Pickett. And the Steelers offense, I think they went the first team offense, I think went the whole preseason without punting or something. Like it was something like they were just incredible, right? Like they were crushing everybody. And then we know how the story unfolded, right? And it's what's really funny. I don't know if you've seen this stat get thrown around, but it was something along the lines of like, so DeZon Stribling had like 7 catches or something the other day in their first preseason game. And I saw like the AP sent a tweet out that was like, it was tied for the most catches in a preseason game or something like in the first half or something along those lines. And then, you're getting excited and you're like, oh man, DeZon Stribling is him. And look, he might be. I'm just saying that the preseason has nothing to do with whether he is or not. Yeah. And in parentheses, it showed the 2 players he tied, and it was Josh Palmer and A.T. Perry that he had tied with so I'm like, so everyone's like quote tweeting this and like retweeting it, and they're like, DeZon Stribling's the man. But in the tweet, it's like A.T. Perry and Josh Palmer, these guys that we just want nothing to do with from a fantasy football perspective. So it's like, there's a lot of that. I agree with you completely. Like there are some really, really good, reliable beat writers out there. If you've been doing this long enough, that you can look to that, can give you the right kind of insights with their teams and such, and like try to find them. And you can ask us, I'm sure, but obviously just, don't take everyone's word for it. But there are people that have been doing this for many, many years that can be really helpful and just like understanding usage and such, because that's what we're worried about, right? In fantasy, we want the volume side. How they perform in preseason, just I've officially retired from that. So I'm with you. I just needed to hear you get angry.
Not angry, but it's a scam. It's just one more. It's it's one more case where it's not enough. It's not enough money. You don't understand, JJ. It's not enough money. My jet doesn't have jewel encrusted cigarette plates or whatever. Like, I need to bilk the season ticket holders and make them pay for exhibition games. It's just a cash grab. All
right. I want to go really quick and talk about a handful of teammate battles that are going on. And I won't even talk about ADP. I just want to talk about them as players and like where you lean and how you feel about them more than anything else. So let's start with Luther Burden versus Roma Dunze, assuming Burden's fine week 1 with the groin injury that he's dealing with.
Okay. I mean, I'm not assuming that because there is some X% chance that
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Or
yeah,
that there's a re-injury.
I want to. Yeah. I'm just curious where you're at with them as just like players and the outlook if they were healthy, right?
Okay. They were very close in my pre-Burden injury ranks, but I still did have Odunze a little bit higher, and I did not expect that going into the offseason. I was mad at Odunze. Obviously, he was crummy at the end of last year, and he was hurt. And I don't know if you heard, but his foot felt funny. But now apparently his foot feels fine because that was always nonsense. I watched that tape before he got hurt. Me and Andy did on the Yacht Club show that we do, and we both came away going, this dude's good. Really, really sudden for as big as he is. So right now I have a fairly strong lean Odunze because of the Burden concern. Like, what if he hurts it again in week 2? But even beforehand, it was a slight, I like Burden too, but it was a slight Odunze advantage.
I lean on the Burden side. I'm a Burden bro, so I'm coming at it from that perspective. I loved him as a prospect, and then like all that happened was that he kind of like verified a lot of my priors, as I watched him last year / saw what he did. Yeah, I know. Second half breakout. I know. But my thing with Odunze versus Burden, and I'm curious if you would maybe, you might completely disagree with this, but I think Odunze is definitely like a lot of people who lean film and like analyze that way. Like Harmon, for instance, loves Rome Odunze. And this is nothing against you guys at all. I think there's a lot of validity to it. I'm curious though, if Odunze might be more aesthetically pleasing as like a traditional wide receiver, and Burden, who has, I mean, he's incredible after the catch, Luther Burden, like it's so much speed, right? And there's a piece of this where Burden just fits what a Ben Johnson offense might be able to do. Like if you want to get an offensive mind that can scheme open his wide receivers and where you don't have to worry about some of that nuance as much, like Ben Johnson would probably be on your short list of guys that you would lean on, right, for that. And Burden then obviously is that like short area quickness, can do so much after the catch. Like with the ball in his hands, he's the best player on that team, right? Yeah. I am trying to look at scheme and fit and such. And I'm not sitting here calling him Amon-Ra St. Brown or anything like that, right? Because St. Brown, I think, is a better route runner than Luther Burden is today and what we know. But there's just something about the scheme and how that matches with Luther Burden that's really appealing to me.
I get it. I don't, you're asking me if I like Coke or Pepsi, and because I said Coke doesn't mean I hate Pepsi. I understand the argument for Burden. Yeah. There's been a lot of people since Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out who have been the next Amon-Ra.
It's fair.
And none of them are, I know, but he could be Amon-Ra. I know those limitations, but he could be Amon-Ra. And no one turns out to be. But you're 100% right. Like, he's really fun with the ball in his hands. Now, is it Jaden Reed? And then you go, okay, then if he can't do anything other than that gizmo stuff, then it's not that useful to me. We'll find out. But no, this is not me disliking Luther Burden. You're
a New England guy, so I am very curious about how you feel about that backfield with TreVeyon Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson.
I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to tell everybody right now, TreVeyon Henderson's being overrated. It's year 2. They still can't trust him in pass protection. I was the guy when everybody was dropping TreVeyon last year who got on the show and said, little birdie is telling me, do not drop TreVeyon Henderson, that we have plans for him. And then like a couple weeks later, they had plans for him. And it was obviously a work in progress. And all I can tell you is that it continues to be a work in progress. And this is going to be, if you're drafting TreVeyon in the 4th round, you're going to be annoyed because there are going to be some weeks where he touches it 13 times and has 44 yards and doesn't break the big one. And Ramondre scores 2 touchdowns, and you're going to be like, why did I do this to myself?
I have Ramondre straight up. I mean, they're in the same tier for me, but I understand the explosive nature to TreVeyon's game. Like, there's a lot of upside packaged in that if things start to click. But I mean, I think that New England just looks at what's reliable. And I think like Ramondre Stevenson, first half of the season, fine. He was awesome the second half of last year. Like, he was legitimately really good. And I took an L because I was we won't get into it. We won't get into how I felt about
happens to everybody. Happens to everybody.
I mean, look, sometimes you take L's with this job.
It's not over. It's not over with Henderson. I think here's where they are. I mean, I'm not telling you I know everything, but like I know a little something. And I think where they are is that they view it as a continuum, and they're trying to be patient with him, and they want him to return kicks, and they they view it as a really awesome arrow in their quiver, I should say. They view it as excellent. There are going to be times where they just try to isolate him and get him with a nice kick out block and a very obvious clear lane. And there's a 90-yard run waiting to happen right there.
Yeah.
But I just think it's not that he'll never be able to do the rest of it, but I don't think they think he can do it now.
Yeah, I'm also, they ran the fewest amount of plays while trailing last year in terms of percent of plays run. And
that's going to change.
Ramondre was on the field Ramondre was on the field for more than double the snaps as Travion in those situations because of the pass pro stuff. And so obviously tougher schedule this year, more than likely, and just general regression, just the way that the NFL ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
You're going to see more negative game scripts. And that's where I think Ramondre is just going to be on the field more.
That's correct.
Like you could argue that last year was really, really a decent situation in general for a player like Travion who was struggling in pass pro. And now, they might just go with more the reliable guy, as long as Ramondre can hold on to the ball, of course, because there's that side, which he seemed to figure out. That, I mean, there's obviously a lot of variance to fumbling and such, but it was a problem for him for a while.
I mean, 2 years ago, I thought he was going to get cut. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas versus Parker Washington. Would love to hear your take on this one.
Man, Parker Washington. Could there be more heat behind any player in fantasy right now? Holy moly.
No, but I freaking love it though, because I mean, I don't love it because I like Parker Washington.
I know, I'd like to get him. I'm just bummed.
I'd like the cheaper price. Please.
I like the 6th round price. I don't think that's ever happening again. My take, I'm interested in your take, but my take is that the new Jags coaching staff came in, Liam Cohen and his cohorts, and said, Brian Thomas, with your nose so bright, you're the man. And they tried to have him do everything. And within about 6 weeks, they were like, oh, he can't do everything. I mean, he looked terrified to go over the middle. He looked uncoordinated, having to run dig routes. He looked like the timing was just off. And so I felt like they started taking stuff away from him and put him back in more hat tip, Matt Harmon, sacrificial X land, even before he got hurt. And then, of course, the Raider game, he gets hurt. And after that, it probably isn't fair to judge because who knows? He had a high ankle sprain. It's legit hurt. He came back maybe a little too early, and maybe that's why he wasn't great. But the lesson I took away was Parker Washington wasn't even the 4th receiver at the beginning of last year. And they found him mid-year, and suddenly he's doing all the stuff that they had Thomas, at least the stuff, interior type stuff that they had slated for Thomas, and he just killed it and was awesome at it. And so why in the world would you go back? So I pretty strongly prefer Washington to Brian Thomas. Yeah,
I'm in the same boat. The thing with Parker Washington too is that like he's not the traditional slot guy, I would argue. Like he's built like a running back kind of, right? Where he can do a lot with his size, but he gets vertical a lot more than people realize too, that I think is a huge part of his game.
There's some, and it's just, there's some 2 year ago JSN in him.
Yeah. Like you want to talk about an Amon-Ra archetype type player. Like he would be one that kind of fits in that a little bit more. And it's, it is a scheme and an offense that I don't put a ton of stock in this kind of thing, but like has traditionally fed slot guys. And a personnel is going to dictate this to a degree, but like Chris Godwin was on his way to having the best season of his career with Liam Cohen. I mean, you could even date back to Cohen at Kentucky. He was using Wan'Dale Robinson, in that kind of role. And so like, I don't think this all happened by accident. Like I do think that I actually thought Parker Washington wasn't a bad prospect too, coming out as one of those things where the model was set, because I can go back and I can look at old prospect guides and see what I was thinking about these players. And I was like fighting against the model in my write-up. I'm like, the model really likes him, but I'm like, you don't need to like go crazy. And I'm like, I wish I would have just leaned into this a little bit more, But yeah, I'm with you with Washington. I genuinely think that he has. I mean, we saw it last year, his upside down the stretch, and they were a top 3 offense in touchdowns per game. Like they were one of the best offenses in football when they started to focus that offense and that passing attack through him, even against some tough. I mean, that Denver game was the one that really got me, where I'm like, oh, okay, so they can do this against a defense like Denver's. That's not nothing. Yeah, on the road, on right? The road. And so
again, I'll kind of draw JSN with DK Metcalf there. Those first couple years where he's mostly a slot player, and he's still doing downfield stuff. Right, and Amon-Ra didn't do that. Amon-Ra didn't go downfield hardly at all.
It's very fair.
And it's hard now that JSN broke out to be like, next JSN, all you need to do is put him on the outside. I don't know that for sure, because I didn't know for sure that JSN would do that. But yeah, I'm more excited by him. And to be honest, after I came away from that Brian Thomas film review, if someone had offered me a first round pick for Brian Thomas in the NFL draft, even on the rookie contract, I probably would have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Brian Thomas, I said this on a show. I had Rich Rebar on and we did a Players to Avoid episode, and he brought up Brian Thomas as one of the players. And he's going to be one of those players that is going to be such a headache in a managed league. And so if you guys play best ball, like get that exposure there, because he's going to have big plays, spiked weeks, you know, like he's just a classic veteran best ball type player. And he probably will have decent production at the end of the season if this offense does click. It's just probably going to be somewhat of a headache. You know, I think Parker Washington is going to be way more reliable. All right, I want to give you one more. Steelers backfield, because you have on one side Jaylen Warren, who I went on your show and said
you love
that
him.
I think that talent wise, I think he's like a fringe top 10 running back in the league. And then you have Rico Dowdle, who people think is Mike McCarthy's son because of the way that he's been tied to McCarthy, and you know it's his guy. So how do you feel about that backfield in general going into this year?
I mean, Warren. I want Warren, and it's really, I'm sure that it is a split, because they mostly are splits these days. That's just the way it is. And so give me the guy I think is better, which isn't to say Dowdle is bad. Dowdle's had such a great story. You want to talk about things that make you like the NFL. Think about Rico Dowdle. Right. Not a prospect, and, you know, a practice squad player, and just barely hanging on in Dallas, and then gets a chance and looks great, but they won't sign him to a contract. Why? I mean, it worked out. Yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't have just paid him the $2 million you paid Javonte Williams. It just seems really strange to me. Then he goes to Carolina, seems buried. Nope. Takes that job over. Terrific. And now goes to Pittsburgh and still didn't get great money, but like a little more money. So love the story and think he's a good player. Like more a power back than not. A little bit of speed, a little bit of wiggle. He's okay. Could catch it a little bit, but you said it on my show best. I mean, Jaylen Warren is an extremely talented person. He is very, very good. And so, like, do I reach to get Jaylen Warren? He's a flex, but I will definitely choose him over Dowdle.
Yeah. You know, if you want some data to the Jaylen Warren stuff too, because on that show, I couldn't talk about data, as we know. I was not allowed to bring up data on that episode. Exactly. But since Jaylen Warren entered the league, among relevant, I can't remember, I think it was like an 80 sample running back sample of like a certain routes run threshold. He's fourth in the NFL in yards per route run, behind only Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, and Bucky Irving, actually, who's very good per route run. It's just they don't deploy him enough in that way. And then in terms of yards per carry, which is a bad metric, especially with low sample sizes, but I looked at only running backs since he entered the league with 400 or more rush attempts, which starts to stabilize more once you get that much volume. And he's top 10 in yards per attempt as well on the ground among 42 running backs. So like he's literally like this combination. He's ahead in yards per attempt than all the other running back, you know, the three other running backs that I just named. So he just got this really unique combination that you just don't find elsewhere. He's really good in pass pro too, which is something that obviously doesn't get talked about much on fantasy shows and such, but
keeps him on the field though. You keeps him on the field.
Yeah. You pair him with a guy in Aaron Rodgers, who's his teams have ranked third in running back target share the last 2 years because he's so afraid to throw the ball down the field. I know. So, but you know,
if only he'd been on a team with Aaron Rodgers last year and caught the ball a lot. Oops.
Yeah, I know. Freaking Kenneth Gainwell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, but like to me, the fit is I mean, I just think he's good, and I agree. It's like I don't mind Dowdle. I think Dowdle's fine.
Yeah, Dowdle's fine, and like I don't think we're sitting here saying, and that was the day we decided Jaylen Warren was a top 10 running back in the league. He's not. Yeah, right. He's not. But he's good. He probably is a top 20 running back in the league, I think. Talent wise, not really fantasy wise because of all various external factors, but I don't have him 30. You know, I have him in the 20s. Like he's good. Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah. All right. Before I let you go,
yes,
I need you to give me and the listeners a bold/hot take for this season.
Bold/hot. Matthew Stafford, top 5 quarterback.
There you go. You're bucking the regression trends. It is. I was actually talking about this with Rich because we talked like My thing with Stafford, I know you're pro Stafford this year, and I understand the lot. I find quarterback ADP to be fairly sharp this year for the most part. Like it's not. I don't really have like a ton of qualms just because there's such a
it's sinking
cluster.
It's sinking,
yeah,
which is good.
Yes,
yeah,
which is good, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's such a cluster of players that I could throw a dart at from like QB 7 or 8 to like QB 16 and not really feel that much different about those players, right? Yeah. But let everyone know where they can find you and, your book, of course, and, everything that you're going to be doing during the season. Right there. Pound Foolish.
Just go to harrisfootball.com for all things me.
Of course, check out lateround.com. Check out the late round draft guide that will be being updated now multiple times a week because people want rankings updated very frequently with seems like everyone in this draft guide that has been a player to target in some way has gotten hurt. So it's just if players should not want to be on this list because it could just end up being rough for them. It's like Final Destination at this point.
Terrible.
But yeah, check it all out, lateround.com. Otherwise, everyone, thanks for tuning in.
Scams don't always look like scams anymore. AI can make a fake ticket offer look legit or a sportsbook text sound official. And once an identity thief gets your personal information, they can start using your name like it belongs to them. And then what? LifeLock helps detect potential identity threats and suspicious activity. And if identity theft happens, LifeLock's restoration specialists can help restore your identity, guaranteed, because only LifeLock truly protects your name and identity. Get LifeLock at LifeLock.com and use promo code FOOTBALL for up to 30% off your first year. That's LifeLock.com, code FOOTBALL.
Grainger knows when you're a procurement manager for an office park, you're not managing one building. You're managing all of them. And to stay ahead, you need to see through walls and around corners. Lights about to fail, filters ready to clog, HVAC on its last leg. If you wait until something breaks, you're already behind. Count on Grainger. For quality products, easy reordering, and 24/7 support. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.